Hey, Ronnie Dahl, Four Wheeling Australia.
This is going to be intense. There's a fire there.
And here's your fork.
Thanks, mate.
This video, we're going to get serious and we're going to talk about
Cast iron / spun steel.
beginner's guide, layman's terms,
Yeah.
with some science behind it.
We've put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, we have actually. Stay tuned, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Coffee down. Too much heat and burning your stuff. Now that is the common mistake that everyone does, and you will do, but we can
Rite
help.
of passage. You do it at home too.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course you do. No one talks about it. With what we're about to tell you here is going to help you not do that. You're going to make less mistakes than what we did.
With a camp oven, the heat coming from underneath is touching your food. So you only want about 1/3 of the heat underneath and 2/3 of the heat on top. That bit of metal, because it's not touching your food, can be 3 times hotter than that bit of metal.
So what you're essentially doing is you're transferring the heat down the sides of the oven.
Yep.
And then down.
And then through the, and also through the through a convection through the air in the oven. Now if you use one of these, a spacer, you actually need even less heat, strangely enough, because usually when you put a camp oven on top of coals, it smothers them. If you use a spacer like this, they get airflow and they actually put out more heat. So I find about half the heat underneath compared to what I usually use. So you're talking 10% of the coals underneath and 90% on top if you use one of these.
Okay.
It's really quite different.
I haven't tried that way, but that's interesting.
We'll do it tonight.
You think it sounds counterintuitive.
It is completely counterintuitive. I thought the big air gap would help, but it heats that metal up so much more.
Cool.
It's crazy.
Trivets. Trivets have their place, and trivets also do not have their place.
I don't use trivets.
I agree with that one too.
It's more cleaning.
Except for when I'm baking, I will use the trivet.
Okay, interesting.
But we're talking about the other oven there. I may as well get the trivet out.
They've got a better trivet, I think.
I like this one because it's more flat, and it kind of keeps the bread off the bottom, because I do like to put heat under the bottom, and I kind of feel that this doesn't burn the bottom as much.
Yeah, but it's a good point, because it does actually give it a little bit of an air gap, and even foods that are particularly susceptible to hot spots like burning crust, like bread, that's where it's really good. That's my trivet you just used. I have used that once.
Really?
Ever.
Okay.
And to be honest, I didn't need to.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to use it. Stop using a trivet, start dividing your coals better.
Use the heat from the top. The heat from the top is more important than anything else.
Yeah, completely agree.
Like if you don't have enough heat to put on the bottom, just put it all on top.
I could happily cook a roast with no heat underneath. Yeah.
Also, one more thing. When you put coals on the top of your lid, put them around the edge. Don't stack them completely on top right in the middle for too long, because if you do that, you will burn your roast.
You will, yeah, absolutely. Because the tallest bit of the roast is in the middle.
There's no convection, right? Yeah. Because it's just mass heat coming down.
It's crazy. With your heat division, if you're doing something like pulled pork, which is actually it sits in liquid, you don't need any heat on top. None. You can actually just do the whole thing underneath. If you're doing a stew,
the water is stopping it.
If you're doing a stew, a soup, or whatever, just cook it from underneath. It's the complete opposite. Yeah. You actually want 90% of heat underneath.
So long as there's liquid in there.
As soon as it dries out, you are screwed.
Yeah.
But if there is liquid in the bottom and you're bubbling through and you're trying to get moisture through something, no problem, have as much heat underneath as you want.
How good is the weather today? This is the best weather I've seen here, ever.
It's not bad, is it? Look at that sunset creeping in over the valley there. It's certainly not bad weather for camp oven cooking, is it, mate?
Oh yeah. Before we go any further, before we look for that shovel or spade, weather has a big impact on camp cooking. So many people fail because of the weather.
Yeah, like whether it's raining, you don't want to go out in the wet, and so you don't fail because you never started it. So like, I think wind has been my biggest problem, because it either blows through your coals and nukes them too hot, or you don't have good enough ones under there and they sort of just peter out into nothing.
I couldn't agree more with the wind. I camp in dry climate a lot.
Yeah.
And the wind is howling through. One side of my bread, all roast, will be uncooked. The other side will be roasted or like really baked.
Yep.
So what I found is you can just keep spinning the oven around. That's one way, it's tedious. Or you make a wind block. So for example, if it's windy right here, right now,
Yep.
grab your big lump of wood that you have around, put right there, load more coals this side, perhaps on top,
Yeah, I see. Yep.
and that'll actually work. That's what I found works. Even like a table. Okay, you don't want to put a table on a fire, but you can put a table over here.
Yeah.
If that camp oven's on that side, it'll smash the heat, it'll cook too fast. On this side, it won't cook fast enough.
Yeah.
What do you do with rain?
Well, with rain,
Do you bother?
pretty rarely. Yeah, but I think cover it is probably your best.
Mm.
And I find that that's the same with any fire. The rain doesn't treat them too well unless you get massive bonfire and it evaporates the rain before it touches it.
That's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know those barbecue pits?
Oh, like you get in national parks.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
and they have the hot plate.
Yeah.
So if you have your camp oven outside, which you normally do because you use the fire's warmth, you spin that plate around and then it covers it.
Yeah, cool.
That works really well. Another one that I just found recently is altitude. When you use your wood at high altitude, it takes longer to burn.
Yep.
It takes longer for you to get coals. It doesn't burn as hot. A fire that will last bugger all time here will last all night there.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Like,
see,
we're talking 7,000 feet.
yeah,
2
see,
kilometres.
we don't get altitude here in WA.
No, except for Mount
Mount Kosciuszko over in
Kosciuszko.
Victoria.
I'm never going to learn how to say that. No, New South Wales, man.
New South Wales. Sorry, New South Welshmen. There you go. Weather. That's a few handy little tips. It takes a little bit more perseverance, a bit more attention.
Cleaning your cast iron, your camp oven, your skillet, your spun steel, your wok.
Anything. Anything that is not non-stick is how you clean it, or stainless or whatever. Anything that needs a coating, a seasoning. Now, there are heaps of myths. Number one myth.
Soap does not kill everything.
Soap will take off your seasoning. No, it will not. Soap will take off oil. Detergent will take off oil. Oil is not seasoning. The spun steel or the cast iron reacts with oil to create a hard coating. That will not come off with anything but abrasion.
It's locked inside the metal.
It's actually it's a hard, like almost like a ceramic coating. It's crazy. If you do some research on it, you'll find that. Now flaxseed creates a really good barrier there, all that kind of stuff. We've spoken about seasoning, but when you burn it, or you get it really rusty, or whatever, and it looks like crap, you do anything you need to do to take that crap off. That's my tool of choice.
Or you can use a drill.
Drill with a wire bit.
That gets into the corners a bit better.
Good old bit of steel wool.
Can I just jump in and show you my easy way of cleaning cast iron?
Sure.
Have you got any tongs?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you two options here. My first option is to superheat the water so your fingers can't tolerate it, but you get a pair of tongs and you get your scarawa, your steel wool scarawa, and you go to town on it. Then you tip it out and you let it dry. Option number two, you don't heat the water too much, but it's warm enough that your fingers can tolerate it, and then you put some detergent in. Now once you've finished scouring it, make sure you wash the detergent out and then you throw it in the fire. After option 1 and 2, you let it dry out and then you spray some oil on it and then you rub it in with some paper towel, put it away to cool, and then pack it away, and it's ready for next time.
Very quickly, the way you season something is put oil on it, get it very, very hot, get it to a smoking point, then it bonds. That's how you season it. So when we say season, it's not actually a difficult process. Thin smear of oil, very hot, take off, done.
And the more times you do it, the better.
Absolutely, you can do coat after coat after coat. However, every time you do this, you go back to square one, and that doesn't matter. It so doesn't matter. If I have one coating or 2 coatings of seasoning on it, I hardly notice the difference between that and 10. And this is an idea that Jimmy from Grab Me Gear had, and I love it. That is an oily cloth. Keep that in your bag. Once it's clean, you can give it a nice smear. You don't have to add oil to it because it's pretty well oil impregnated.
You soak this first.
You soak it first, but you need so little oil in there to season it. In fact, the less is more. If you have blobs of oil, they burn and get crusty and it's crap. You smear it with that, get it hot, smear it with that, get it hot, smear it with that. That's 2, 3, 4, whatever coats of seasoning, and that works really well. If you have time before a trip, get your barbecue, put the hood over it, and you can blast your whole camp oven.
In the oven at home, pull it out, wiped it, let it cool down.
Yep.
Back in the oven, come back later. Repeated that process 4 times.
Yep.
This camp oven that I'm talking about was pre-seasoned, but I did it anyway.
Okay.
It's just good practice.
Yeah.
And then you get that nice goldy look to it as well.
Yeah, they look really cool actually.
Yeah.
Flaxseed oil turns this awesome colour.
Then you
Turns like
know
purple.
it's seasoned as well. Quick tip with oil. Instead of aerosol cans, you can just put a bit of vegetable oil in one of these. These are a decor thing. Get it from any supermarket in Australia at least. Check this out. Paper towel, and it's done. This is something I want to talk about because a lot of people wouldn't know this. Olive oil.
Bad.
Good for pastas and stuff if there's a lot of liquid, but if you're doing steaks or you're frying stuff, olive oil is the worst because it has a very low
Smoke point.
smoke point. Yeah, smoke point or burn point.
Some oils are better than other oils, especially when it's high temperature. This is olive oil, and this is what happens so easily with olive oil, which I don't recommend using in high temperature cooking.
And just wait a sec before you do that. I'll put some oil in there.
Woo!
Woo! There's already some oil in there.
Hey!
Quite
We have
pre-warmed, as it
reached
turns
auto
out.
ignition temperature. You might ask, what does that mean? You heat a substance to a point where it will just catch on fire by itself. Marvelous. All right, we may need to put this out. Get the fire extinguisher?
No.
No, no way.
Not again.
All right, we need to put a lid on. You don't want to use
So
this.
it goes bitter and horrible.
And it burns.
It's burn, and it actually turns carcinogenic.
Yeah,
So
carcinogenic as well, which is not good. Rice oil is better than vegetable oil. Vegetable oil is better than olive oil.
yep, there's an old wives' tale which is that animal fat works best. That's
Yeah.
a load of crap. It just doesn't.
It tastes
really
good.
doesn't. It tastes good, and I love cooking with animal fat. God, duck fat roast potatoes, incredible.
Oh mate, can I tell you, when I went to America, this guy called Bill, he made authentic tacos and he had a tub, it looked like a tub of bearing grease full of pig fat. Oh my
Stop it.
God,
That
that
would
was
be
so
incredible.
good. It was incredible.
It's like back in the day, you know, your grandma would pour out the, get a little spout here, and they'd pour out all the drippings, and they'd put it in the fridge, and they'd use it next time. And they got a big tub of animal grease. Now, that's what they used to use to season their cast iron because it's what they had in the fridge, and it was essentially free. It is not the best seasoning. It does work, but it is far from the best seasoning. The best seasoning is actually pretty much the cheapest oils you can buy. Don't buy palm oil because
Rice oil has a really high burn rate.
Yeah.
Rice oil is what I recommend.
rice oil and peanut oil.
Deep frying,
Even-
rice oil has a higher smoke rate than most other oils. What you don't want to use for deep frying is definitely olive oil. Be too expensive too. Imagine deep frying with olive oil. It will catch on fire.
It would. Remember that time we caught it all on fire?
Yeah, but that wasn't even that. That was actually
was-
this. That was actually rice oil.
That was
It
horrendous.
was super hot. Couldn't even put it out.
We couldn't put it out.
No.
We'd lit the biggest fire. We had the biggest oil fire, and we actually couldn't put it out. We tried an emergency
Fire blanket?
fire blanket. It burnt through a fire blanket.
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
How not to put it out?
All right, this is not working. Woo!
Holy shit! We used.
I think we melted one of the plastic sheets up here too.
Yeah, we tried a fire extinguisher. We ended up using a cast iron plate over
Barbecue lid.
over the top of it and left it for about an hour.
No, about half an hour first, and we removed it and it caught on fire again.
Put it back on and just went, all right,
Yeah.
we'll just go do something else.
We had
for
to
a
tip it
while.
out in the lawn in the end. Private property.
Burnt all the lawn. Just here.
Yep. The
Anyhow.
grass is looking great now.
Yeah.
We're now talking about wood used. So, sorry about the noise. So the two bits of wood that I know are really good, Carry and Murray wood.
And Jarrah.
Sorry, and Jarrah. Jarrah's the main one.
Yeah.
Mallee roots.
Mallee roots are
Mallee
incredible.
roots are epic.
Yeah. But there are a whole bunch of intricacies here. So
I'll leave it to him now.
now, if you want coals, which you do for cooking, you need to use hardwood, usually a dark hardwood. If you use a lighter wood, a lighter hardwood, it usually goes ashy and you don't actually get big chunks of coal. So Jarrah, Karri, Gidgee is a great one if you're on the East Coast. There are a few different woods that create great coals. Pine actually creates really good coals, but it just burns too quickly. There's a toss-up. If you want wood that burns for a long time, it is going to be ashy wood. It doesn't turn into coals quickly. If you want wood that burns for a short time, burns hot, it's going to create the best coals. So pine, Gidgee, Jarrah, all hot burning, really good for cooking wood, but actually not great if you want to just chuck a piece on and go to sleep, or and not have to tend to the fire. It's worth actually researching the woods in your area, it doesn't take long, and find something with a relatively high density of energy and use that.
So you've got lump charcoal, you've got manufactured charcoal.
And it's different to coal, which is mined.
Yeah.
This is created.
So that is dehydrated wood.
This is Gidgee from Queensland. Bloody good stuff, Pit Brothers.
That is really good.
It's really nice stuff.
Even the stuff you get at Bunnings in those bags, that's lump charcoal, it's good.
It's good, but be careful of actually where it came from. You'll find a lot of it is South American rainforests.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I personally avoid the stuff at Bunnings. Right. And if you're in WA or in Australia, jump on Gumtree. Really good. You get great mallee root charcoal and stuff.
Oh,
really
I didn't
good
know
stuff.
about that.
Yeah, really cheap.
Okay.
$20 a bag.
But one other thing, if you do go and use the Bunnings stuff, don't buy the bags, buy the stuff that's in a box.
In a box.
Because what's in a box stays or keeps its shape a bit better. Because you go to bag stuff, you get all fragments and it's not good for cooking.
It's true.
It just burns too
that's
quick.
very true, yeah.
This is different.
This is a uniform shape. So now the way they make this is they get,
Is that the cornstarch?
yeah, well, I don't, it's a starch, potato starch, cornstarch, something like that. It's a starch product. And they basically get a bunch of charcoal that has already been made, crush it up, and then form it into uniform sized bricks. The reason for that is that you can say, I need 8 heat beads to cook this. So it makes it so that you get an exact recipe for your amount of heat. Camp oven cooking is, to me,
It's
a little
different,
bit different. And
You just
it depends.
you load it on.
If it's a
you
40
load it
degree
off.
day or a negative 2 degree day, it's quite a different outcome. So I personally use lump charcoal because I find it much nicer, much less manufacturing process. It smells better, it burns hotter, it's just nice. I always carry a couple of kilos of charcoal. It weighs about as much as, half a stick. When you don't have time to create a fire and have a bunch of coals, you can grab a few bits of charcoal, get them lit, put them on top, and they're fine for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever.
They're actually easier to cook with.
Way easier to cook with. So they are a really good little, if you want a campfire cook, but you get into camp late and you don't have time to create a whole bunch of coals to shove on top of your camp oven to keep replacing, use this. It's so good.
Say in Australia, you may be travelling 1,000 k's in one day. You drove overnight. All of a sudden, everything's different. The wood's different. You may be in desert country. You can't get wood. You can only get thin bits of wood. That's your backup.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's
really
so
good.
much easier to cook with because you know how it's going to burn. The wood you're going to find, you don't know how it's going to burn
Absolutely
unless
not.
you got, And even if you have experience with it, you might have been in the southwest for ages using Jarrah.
Yeah.
And then now you're up
suddenly you
using
turn around,
snakewood.
Snakewood, yeah, exactly. Yeah, all one do.
Next topic, we're now talking about premature cookulation.
Oh, mate, yeah, starting too early.
Yes. You start your fire.
Yep.
And you rocked into camp too late.
Yep.
It happens.
Yep.
So you get your fire going. And then you start grabbing the coals straight away and put on your camp oven. Only to find that they burn out and you got a really small fire now and you got to wait. Make sure you have a good bed of coals. Not a big bed of coals, it's a good, thick bed of coals.
It's all around bad because you start your fire, I want to get my roast on real quick. You pinch a bunch of coals, it's not enough coals to get your roast going, and you've diminished your fire down to practically nothing.
Yeah.
So you don't have much to build more coals up on to boost your roast.
So you really got to think about how you do your fire. So put loads of small stuff on. When I say small stuff, like stuff that's size of your forearm
Yeah.
or smaller.
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that's going to burn really quick.
Yep.
Anything bigger, you don't want to put that on straight away.
It's going to take ages for your coals to sort of break down.
It is. It is.
Yeah. How many shovel loads of coals do you think we should be aiming for, like before we shovel them off the fire and onto the camp oven?
I'd say a good 8 handfuls.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Good 8 handfuls of coals.
I use a shovel that's probably about yay big. So
We
what's
reckon
that?
3 or 4.
Probably 20, 30 centimetre sort of load, and I
Yeah.
reckon 3 to 4 shovel loads.
And you need to consistently add them on. Like I need to replace those now.
Yep.
And it hasn't even been that long, and I've got a fair few there, but you got to get right into it.
So if you don't have too many coals around, you can just add more sticks as you go, and you're going to create your own coals, and that'll do the same job.
When you start out, maybe you want to build a really big fire, like bigger than what you might normally do.
Yeah,
Okay,
it'll burn
not
down pretty
bonfire, but it's going to burn down into the coals you need, and then from there you can just keep chucking a few bits on and keep building up that base to
Yeah.
cycle them through.
Plan your fire, and that's why these coals, which we just spoke about before with Harry, they are very important because they're your backup. They're your
Yeah.
go-to in
Yep.
this situation.
Get them hot quick and off they go.
The best food that I've ever cooked in a camp oven has been from cheap camp ovens.
Yeah, I think all the food I've ever cooked out of camp ovens has been from cheap camp ovens. I've tested cheap, expensive, lots. You have a $300+ camp oven.
And it's so hard to cook with. It'll be good for stews because it keeps the moisture in.
It's essentially a pressure cooker. Now, if you used that camp oven and say one of my recipes, or basically one of any camp oven recipes, it probably wouldn't work because it actually doesn't behave like a normal camp oven. Camp
Yeah.
ovens aren't supposed to seal that well. They're not supposed to be that good.
You have to throw hacks in there, like throw a temp peg to break the seal to let moisture out.
Absolutely, yeah, or some wire or something. It doesn't work properly with the best of the best. Now, if you're in a fine dining situation or a professional chef, then you're used to using the best of the best. I would actually say buy cheap camp ovens.
Yeah, I prefer to use cheap camp ovens.
I do too. Also, camp ovens, you can drop them. If they're cast iron, they'll crack. If they're spun steel, they'll bend and the lid won't fit as well. Why spend the earth? And you can make just the same quality of food. You just make the adjustments for heat and moisture.
And wouldn't most of the recipes in like camp oven books, wouldn't they be sort of
All-
based on like your cheap to medium camp ovens?
Yeah, they're not designed to be cooked in a top of the range handmade Japanese camp oven or ceramic coated, restaurant grade cast iron pot.
This is where cheap is better than expensive.
Actually, and genuinely better. I don't just mean acceptable, better.
Righto, boys and girls, ladies and gents. If you are concerned about campfire cooking and you've been reluctant to do it, take these tips, take this advice, and just give it a go. Just expect to burn some things. Yeah, it's still edible, we just cut the top of it off.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
start with some easy recipes. A bit of self-promotion here, but jump on my website, firefork.net, and have a look at the pulled pork recipe. That is the easiest campfire meal I reckon you can cook.
Yep.
It's extremely hard to burn. It's a recipe that by far the most people have contacted me and said, that was awesome.
Nice. Yeah, just don't be discouraged.
Just,
Yep.
just give it a shot.
Burn a little bit, just get out there and you'll be bloody taking Harry's job in no time.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, all of my recipes are designed for fire and camp oven. So all of my instructions tell you how long to put it on for, how hot are the coals, all that kind of stuff. So
Everything you cook has got a different way of cooking it.
Yeah.
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
like pulled pork is cooked different than ribs. Ribs are cooked different than roast pork.
Yeah,
You know, have you got crackle, you want to crackle it, it's all different.
yeah.
So just give it a go, start with something easy, and see how you go.
And there's a great, actually, your video on damper and bread, I think is probably the best instructional video I've seen on that.
It's probably the
You're
easiest
bloody-
thing to not stuff up as well if you follow the instructions.
See, I stuff
Good
up all the
starting
time,
place then.
whereas
Yeah.
you're really good at it because you're great at baking. So it's very personal.
Thanks. Oh, I didn't know I was that good at baking.
You're very good at baking.
We'll see how this thing turns out.
I'm terrible at baking.
Alright guys, cheers for watching
Cheers.
Cheers.
and see you in the next video.